Hello and welcome back to another edition of Come Back Stronger. I'm Dana Brooks of the Fasig Brooks Law Offices, and I'm joined today with my law partner, Jimmy Fasig. Jimmy, this is an exciting show. We've got a woman on here who has done what they all do, and she's taken something that she didn't think she would even survive, and she's found some kind of inside fortitude to use that bad experience and create a foundation to come back stronger and help other people come back stronger. We've got Janelle Irwin on today, and humble brag, she's in the Club 25 with me. She's one of the 25 women you need to know in this town, according to our newspaper, the Tallahassee Democrat. She's at a preceding class, but she has experienced something nobody ever is prepared for. No one wants it, of course, but you just don't know what you can do until you're faced with it, and that is a very serious illness in her child.
The worst nightmare of any parent is to find out that your child has leukemia.
Right.
And that's exactly what Janelle went through, and she had to tackle it head on.
Yeah.
And they overcame, and finally her child is doing fine right now. But through this process, she created such a great comeback story.
Yes, she did.
Because she created the Hang Tough Foundation. The pain that she went through inspired her to help other people who are going through the same thing, and that is a critical, awesome element of every great comeback story.
Every one of them, and this wasn't, you know, a blip in the radar. This wasn't something she just had to get through in a surgery and that sort of thing. Not that that's not enough, but this became part of her life, and since she lived in it and she breathed it and she was with it every day, she knew that she had to do something to help other people dealing with the same problem. So we're going to come back with our interview with Kimmy Hogan and Ms. Irwin right after this break.
They might show up at your door with a check for $500 to try to get you to sign on the bottom line. They will do anything they can to save the insurance company money, and if you hire a lawyer and come back stronger, then you are going to be dealing with them on a level playing field.
You know what I tell my clients is that Come Back Stronger is not just a slogan, it's a game plan.
Yes.
Because in order to get you fair compensation, we have to prove to the insurance company that you are doing everything you can to get better.
Yes.
And when you do everything you can to get better, if you're still hurting, then insurance company, you better pay.
Right.
Because we want to make you whole. So it's not just an idea of let's make you better after this horrible thing happened. It's a plan to make you better.
And I think in coming up with that plan, it makes us better lawyers too.
100%.
Because I think having that game plan helps us achieve more and be more successful for the client.
And we are back for Kimmy Hogan's first segment of her interview with Janelle Irwin.
Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me today.
So let's start at the beginning of your story. Tell us where you're from. Give us kind of a background on you.
Yeah, I was born and raised in Topeka, Kansas, so in the Midwest, and married my high school sweetheart. We graduated from Kansas State University, got a degree in family life and community services, which will come into play later in my story. My husband and I moved to Colorado right after we got married, lived there for a wonderful 4 years, and then relocated to Tallahassee, Florida, at the time with just our 1-year-old daughter, Caitlin. And so now we've been in Tallahassee for almost 10 years.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. So you are now the director of the Hang Tough Foundation.
Yes, ma'am.
And so we want to hear the story of how you got there, and of course there was a big event in your life with your son Grayson.
Yes.
So tell us about Grayson and tell us about what his birth was like and everything that led you to creating the Hang Tough Foundation.
Yeah, we had our son Grayson in 2012. He was a neurotypical, developing, hitting all his milestones, perfect little pudgy, cute little baby. And about 10 months old, we started noticing some strange symptoms. Took him to the doctor 4 times and kept saying something's not right, but every time we kind of kept going back to must have just been something viral, must have been chickenpox before he got vaccinated.
What were the symptoms like?
So the first one, he had a really high grade fever, 104, and they just kind of said, something viral, we'll just blow it off. Then he got a rash that looked like chickenpox, and so they said must have just been something viral. Took him back to follow up. It had kind of gone away, and they said, well, just keep an eye on things. And then the last time I took him in, He was very lethargic. He just was not himself. And I had started noticing bruising on his arms in weird spots. And then it was that morning that I actually changed his clothes, took his little onesie off, and I could see where my fingerprints typically pick him up.
Oh, wow.
In a bruise form on his little torso. And so when I took him back to the doctor's office that afternoon, it was like, something's not right. And of course, I had been there several times, so I think they thought I was a little
Go,
crazy.
Mama, go, though. Go, Mama, go. You know
crazy.
your babies, right?
Right.
You got to advocate for them.
And so I did. I said, something's not right. We got to figure it out. And as soon as the doctor felt his spleen and liver, she kind of pulled her hands back and she said, "Oh, we're gonna go get you some stat blood work really quick. We're gonna check for things like mono." But you're right. Something's not right. Things look enlarged and not right. And I actually left to take him to get the lab work. And I called my mom, who was a nurse back in Kansas, and I said, "Mom, they're checking for leukemia." And she said, "Did they say that?" And I said, "No, but I said, they're going to tell me Grayson has leukemia this afternoon." And my mom said, Don't talk like that, She hung up the phone and told her people on staff at the nursing unit. She said, "My grandson's getting diagnosed with leukemia today." We just knew. And sure enough, 2 hours later, got the phone call to go back to the doctor's office and to not bring the kiddos, but to have my husband meet me there. And they gave me a lot of information that didn't make much sense at the time, other than get in the car, go to Shands as soon as possible. They're waiting on you.
Oh, wow.
And so we packed up, and by 9 p.m. that night, we had the formal diagnosis that he had infant T-cell leukemia.
That's terrifying. It's making me tear up just think about it.
It was the craziest, most earth-shattering moment of my life. And I mean, by the time we got to the hospital, he was vomiting blood. And Shands told us that had we not made it to the hospital within about a 2-hour time frame, we probably would have lost him that day.
Wow.
So,
how long was that from when you first noticed things to when you got to
3
Shands?
weeks.
Wow.
3 weeks. A very
So
rapid, and that's why they call it acute lymphoblastic leukemia, because it happens very fast. And by the time he got diagnosed, a typical child would have a white cell count of 10,000. You're considered, if you're diagnosed over 50,000 of a white cell count, high risk. Grayson was 378,000.
Oh,
so
my
he was
goodness.
7 times the high risk rate at the time of his diagnosis. So he was...
Wow.
He was not doing well. It was already in his central nervous system by the time we caught it. But it was such a blessing when we arrived at Shands and we were in the ICU. I said, "What are you telling me?" I said, what are our chances here? And they said, "We don't treat numbers, we treat children." And, that was their way of saying, we're not going to tell you what we... what we think the numbers are. And a year down the road, I did get them to tell me. I said, "Come on. What'd you really think?" And they said their medical team had met and they gave him a 10% chance
Wow.
of making it.
So what happened when you got there? Did they spring into action with chemo, or what did they do?
It was insane, because when we got there, they already had everything laid out ready to go, because they had seen the numbers from the lab work. They knew it was more of an emergency than we even realized. So when we walked in the door, they said, "Are you the Irwin family?" And we said, "Yeah." And they had a room ready and everything was laid out. And that was the moment that it hit me. Oh, this is not looking good. They already had an ICU room reserved for us, whole 9 yards. And they started trying to explain things, which of course you're emotional. I remember going in the bathroom and just splashing cold water on my face, hoping I would wake up from the nightmare.
Yeah.
But once we got to a room and kind of got things quieted down a little bit, they started laying out our options. And pretty much the option was, we can do the typical treatment that we would give a child with leukemia. But they were very candid that they did not think, with his age and with some of the other preliminary things like the white cell count, that would do anything. And then they threw out this stack of this clinical trial, and they said, "This is your other option, and we feel this would be the best route to go, and we need paperwork signed by tomorrow at noon on what you're going to do."
Wow.
And so we did a lot of praying in that amount of time. A lot of, just looking at my husband saying, "What do we do?" Not knowing much about the clinical trial, but what we ultimately decided was, God has blessed incredible people on this planet with medical knowledge, and we decided to trust the experts. And so we signed that paperwork for that clinical trial. And Grayson is a living, breathing testament to that.
And now 9 years old.
Yes.
Well, we have to go to commercial break, but when we come back, we're going to talk more about Grayson and about the Hang Tough Foundation.
Perfect.
Thanks.
Wow.
I can't even imagine.
Yeah.
Can't even imagine going through that. But what struck me most about it, and I was thinking about this, is what do you do when you're in the midst of tragedy? And how do you generally handle that? And what she did was she got in the car, she went to Shands, she put one foot in front of the other, she prayed about it, and she ultimately decided to trust the experts, trust the people that have been through this and they know everything about it, and that's what got her through it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She trusted, but she also, felt very convicted about this is the right thing to do. I want to throw everything I have at this. I want to give him the best shot. And she didn't let a concern about the odds or any of that inform her decision. She's like, no, I made this commitment. My child is going to get well and he's going to get through this. But so many times whenever our world turns upside down, the way at least women I know like to handle that is to try to do something that makes you feel in control of an uncontrollable situation. And that's whenever you start looking out and say, okay, what kind of resources do I have? Who can I talk to? Where's the research on this? What are the options? And you've just got to keep a level head on your shoulders, but that is almost impossible to do whenever you're trying to support your spouse, your other children, you're worried about, bills. How am I going to be away and take care of all these day-to-day obligations I still have to everyone else in my family?
Which is exactly what she had to go through, and that's exactly why she developed the Hang Tough Foundation that helps people that are going through the exact same thing.
Yeah, I can't wait till the second half of this because she talks about things that I don't think any of us ever consider when we think about having a child who needs 100% of our attention. You really don't think about the fallout on everybody else in the family and what is being missed. You don't think about how your child is being taken out of a mainstream environment and treated like something very unique and special to them. And you want them to survive it, but you also want them to thrive on the other side of it, not always see themselves as weak or not as healthy as the other children. So I just like her story because she helps us think about things that we probably never consider. But we'll be right back after this break for the second part of our interview.
I love nothing more than when a former client refers me a friend or a relative, because that shows me that they really appreciated what I was able to do for them.
And the thing that's most rewarding to me and the thing that I'm proudest about with this firm is that we truly do love our clients. I've got them in my phone, I follow them on social media, I celebrate when they have their grandbabies or when they change jobs or when they have their first baby. And that's real, and it's so rewarding from a personal standpoint and a professional standpoint. And I think that realness and that relationship helps us make their cases so much better too.
100%.
They're not just another number to us, they're not just a cog in the wheel, they're not just a way for us to make a living. It's just a way for us to have better lives ourselves by getting to know so many clients and helping them.
I think that's why so many of our clients come back to us and send people that they love and know to us. It's the highest compliment you could get. Hi, and we are back for Kimmy Hogan's second segment of her interview with Janelle Irwin and the Hang Tough Foundation. You're going to learn more about it right now.
So tell us about the treatment that Grayson received.
So Grayson underwent a 2-year treatment process. The goal of the clinical trial, and this is direct quote from his doctors, was that they were going to give him 4 times the chemotherapy dosage that they would typically give a child. And so what they told me is in the first 6 months they were going to cram extra in, and they were going to, quote, push him as close to the point of death as possible and then bring him back to retrain his body to produce good blood cells. And so that first 6 months was a year worth of treatment crammed into 6 months. And that reduced the average treatment for a little boy with leukemia is 3 years, but ours was only 2 years. So the first 6 months were really hard. By the time he turned 2, he only weighed 16 pounds. He was very sick, very frail. Didn't get to learn to walk till he was 2 because he just had nothing to use, no energy. But he was a champ. He soared through treatments in ways that they didn't think were going to be possible, to be completely honest with you. Most of the kids that went through the same clinical trial, the percentage was that 68% of them passed away in the first 2 months of treatment because they pushed too hard.
Wow.
So praise God that Grayson was an outlier to that.
Yes.
And it was a very long, hard 2 years. The first year, they did not allow us to leave the city limits of Gainesville because he was so high risk. They wanted us very close. So I had my husband and my daughter living back here in Tallahassee, and then Grayson and I stayed at Shands or at an apartment that we had to rent to stay within the city limits. So it was a very long, hard 2 years. Glad to say that we're on the other side of that.
Yes. And so you have created the Hang Tough Foundation, which is a foundation that helps families that are going through things like what you went through with Grace.
Exactly.
So tell us the mission of Hang Tough and how you came up with the idea for it.
So Hang Tough is a local nonprofit that serves families that have children with chronic life-altering illness or special needs. What we found during our journey was that no matter the diagnosis of a child, it affects the family. It affects the pockets of the family in very similar ways. So the caregiver relationship, the marital relationship, the siblings. And so myself and Michelle Hart, another mom who had been through a cancer journey with her daughter, we just started dreaming. We got out notebooks and paper. We spent a lot of time on the phones when I was at the hospital dreaming of how we could support families. And when I was at Shands, I had all these things right at my fingertips. Child life specialists, social workers, and things like that. But when I did get sent home back to Tallahassee, I was all alone, and that was a very scary place to be. And we just started dreaming about how we could fix that. And so we created Hang Tough Foundation with, actually, Grayson still had 6 months left in his treatment because we thought it would be this very slow start to get an organization started, and we knew how great the need was, but we had no idea. So we are 7 years old now, and we are serving 872 heroes, which are children with diagnoses, and all of their family members. So we're serving over 3,000 people on a regular basis.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And that's all people in Tallahassee.
So we serve Leon, Jefferson, Gadsden, and Wakulla counties.
Okay.
But 75% of them are Leon County. So if you really start looking at how prevalent it is that families are undergoing the unthinkable with their kids, it's mind-blowing. You can go a couple houses down from you and you can find someone.
So how do y'all get funding to be able to do what you do for these families?
What I love most about the Tallahassee community is this is a very giving, very generous community. Everything that we have done so far has been grassroots, local individuals and local businesses that have fallen in love with our mission and brought it to life. Legitimately brought it to life. We don't get any state, federal funding yet. Maybe one day down the road we will. But right now, it is just the heartbeat of people in our community that have kept it afloat.
That's amazing. And tell us a little bit about the different services that y'all offer and the different support groups that you have.
Absolutely. So we have 10 programs and services that we offer our families that are all completely free to any of our hero families, is what we call them. And they vary between support groups, parents' night out opportunities where parents can get a break, and have medically trained staff to be able to watch their kids so they can actually go breathe for a little bit. We do sibling support activities because that is a huge component of the family that often gets overlooked. And I saw that firsthand with my daughter, who was 3 at the time. And you don't mean to kind of push that child to the side, but when you're trying to keep one alive over here, it just happens. So we spend time putting those kids on a pedestal, making sure they know how important they are to their family unit. We do family fun events, getting these kids to do normal things that we take for granted every day. Getting to go to a movie theater, getting to go to Skate World, getting to go to Fun Station and do those things that are otherwise not available. Tutoring services, school supply drive, an experience with Santa. We kind of dabble in it all, but what is fantastic is it's not just my experience and Michelle's experience. Because we're local, many of these programs and services have come about from the families that we serve saying, hey, this is something we need. And then we say, let's do it. Let's find a way. And then we can support them in that manner.
It's just amazing. It's amazing.
I often say out of dark circumstances come really great opportunity if you look for it. You've got to find the good in the situation. You've got to find the way to turn it around. And if we dwell on the horrible stuff that happened, we can't discover the way we can really serve others.
Yeah. Well, you certainly did. And I'm amazed, right? Because you're sitting there at Shan's with your son and you're thinking about how can I help others. That's just incredible.
You know, and my parents are thrilled that I finally used that degree that I got back in the day. So it's really cool to see it all come full circle and to find that this is my ministry, this is my heartbeat. And I'm just so grateful that it's what I get to do every day as my job.
So for people who are watching, if they want to help the Hang Tough Foundation, what can they do? How can they find you?
So many ways. Pop on our website, hangtoughfoundation.org. Check us out. We're always looking, of course, for donations to keep our mission alive. We are primarily volunteer run. We only have 3 staff members. So any kind of volunteerism, come our way. We need you desperately. And then, of course, if you're a family that can use services, it is quick and easy to sign up on our website, and we would love to welcome you to our big Hang Tough family.
That's awesome. Well, in closing, do you want to leave any advice for families that are maybe struggling with medical issues on behalf of their children?
You know, the biggest thing I learned, and it took me a few months to get there, was I had to train myself to look for the good in every day. There would be nights I was laying on the incredibly uncomfortable couches in my son's hospital room, but I would force myself at the end of every day, what was good today? And some days it was simple as finding someone that smiled at me in the hallway when I was breaking, that they didn't even know their smile was what carried me through to the next day. Other days there were very easy things to find. But it is something that I got away from for a while, and just in this last year, I've circled back to that every night I go to bed and what was good in today. And I think if we could all take that time, we would find that this world is not as awful as we think it is, and that there's so much positivity out there, and that we can be that positivity for others.
Well, you are an inspiration. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us.
Glad to be here.
Well, that was very touching.
Out of dark circumstances come really good opportunities if you look for them.
Hey,
that was
that
my
sounds
favorite
very-
quote. That was so.
Sounds very Jimmy Fasig to me.
Yes.
How do you think she was able to do that, though? That's pretty dark.
Well, yeah, I was as dark as it gets.
Well,
You're
you think
losing.
about
You're losing your
yourself.
child. You're literally. They're putting chemicals in your child that
To
is
try
going
to
to put
him on the brink of
him
death.
to the brink of death. So here's Grayson, 2 years old. Oh my gosh, so painful. But how did she do it? She trained herself to look for the good in every day.
You know what word came out to me was attitude.
Uh-huh.
You know, no matter what you're dealing with, your attitude about it is going to pretty much inform how it goes for you. And you think to yourself, how do you find something good whenever you're spending 2, and in some cases, like she said, with the average case for a young child that age, a male child would be 3 years of that. You know, how do you get the fortitude to go through every day? How do you see some light at the end of the tunnel? And how do you not feel like everything else in your life is suffering? I mean, it's just an enormous pressure and amount of responsibility, but to find the way to see the goodness. And this is something else. Smile at people. When you pass people in the hallway, I don't care where you are.
Right.
You're walking into your building, smile at people, make eye contact, because you don't have any idea how important that might be to somebody who needed it more than anything that day.
100%. What I love about her story is the fact it supports my theory, which is that our challenges in life guide us to become the highest and best version of ourselves so that we can contribute the most to making this world a better place. That is exactly what she has done. It's very exciting to watch. Now after Grayson has overcome this challenge and she's developed this foundation that's helping so many people. It's very exciting to see that. But it's also when you're in the midst of the challenge, that's when it's important to take that little good in every day and
then
to see
she's
it.
continuing to give it forward. I can't wait to come back after the break and we'll wrap up. But this is an amazing story with so much goodness to share with the world. So we'll be right back after this.
To me, Come Back Stronger is about starting the case with a plan and with a goal of not just to get back to where you were, but to actually move forward in your life. When an insurance company sees that you've been hurt and you've been in an accident and you've got medical bills, you've got pain and suffering, you have property damage to your vehicle, you are at a very low point in your life. And what an insurance company will do is they will try to take advantage of you. They might show up at your door with a check for $500 to try to get you to sign on the bottom line.
They'll show up at the hospital.
They'll show up at the hospital. They'll tell you not to get an attorney. They will do anything they can to save the insurance company money. And if you hire a lawyer and come back stronger, then you are going to be dealing with them on a level playing field.
And we are back talking about Janelle Irwin and what she's done to change the lives of so many children, little heroes, and then also their caregivers and their family through her Hang Tough Foundation. But to me, what was really poignant was when Kimmy Hogan, our law partner, at the first part of the interview, she said, "Go, Mama, go." And that's, you know, an ode to listening to yourself and your instinct when you know something is not right with your child. And doctors go to a lot of training, they see a lot of people and a lot of patients, but nothing can replace a mother's instinct when she just said, "This is not right."
That's right.
And she's like, you know, this child is bruised, this child is not doing well. I haven't had a million children, but I just know. And so I really applaud her for listening to her instincts and just not, you know, kind of poo-pooing the concern and putting that in the background.
Well, you see this all the time. As a medical malpractice lawyer, you see how patients need to be their own best advocate.
Yes, they do.
Because the doctors have a lot going on a lot of times, and they don't see all the details. They don't know your body.
Right.
They don't know your child's body in as much detail as you do. And so if you feel like something's wrong, if you feel like something is wrong with your child, you have got to go in there and fight to make sure that you get down to the bottom of it.
You know, and something else she talked about was my parents are so glad I finally am using that degree. It's a family, life, and community, but I just have this deep belief that the universe gives you what you need and puts you where you're supposed to be. And that degree probably got her through, and she relied on a lot of education she probably thought was useless or wasn't going to serve her, and it probably was what was the thing to get her through it. What final remarks do you have today before we wrap up this fantastic show?
All I have to say is it was a great show, and join us next time as we come back next week with another awesome comeback story. And if you know somebody with a comeback story, then let us know so that we can talk to them possibly about being on the show.
And follow us on social media. We'll see you next time.
And you know what the insurance company offered him? $5,000. Really? He's completely blind, and they offer him $5,000. Ask him to sign a release.
To a lot of people, especially when they're hurting and when they're down and when they're vulnerable, $5,000 is a life-changing amount of money. And they're not looking at the value of what has been lost. They're not looking at what it would take to make that person whole, which is our job. That's our job. Their job isn't. Their job is to save the insurance company money.
Right.
And they look at this person and they go, I bet $5,000 would get your full attention. Right. And they come in and they dangle it with a settlement release, and then once you sign it, you're done. You can't come back to us and ask us to wave a magic wand and make that go away. That can't go away.
My client didn't accept the $5,000. We took him all the way to trial. We got a $5 million verdict.